when I came back from vacation and started the new semester of school. She came to visit me, sort of. She came to my university for some reason and lost her Fitbit and called me to help her. I came to help and she spent some time together, but I could feel something was different. She then told me she wanted me to come visit her in 2 days at her parents' house as she had something to talk to me about. It was then I knew what was coming. I talked to some of my friends and prepared for the worst. When I got to her parents' house, it was late. She asked me to come at 10 p.m. She came into my car and we talked for about 30 minutes to an hour. She told me that she no longer wanted to date me. And I agreed. I told her I had felt her becoming distant and I asked her if it was someone else. She denied there was something else. She said she simply no longer felt we were right for each other. But then she said other things. She said that she never considered me husband material. That she never saw us getting married, having kids. That she had always known from the beginning. She even said another reason she didn't want to be with me was that her kids wouldn't look like her because of her being white and me being Latino. This is especially funny now because she likes to say how progressive and not racist she is, right? This shocked me. I remembered back to all the plans we made. All the times she had asked if I would marry her. All the times she had talked about our hypothetical children. That hurt the most. I told her I loved her but that I agreed we were done. We decided on no contact. She decided to block me on Facebook, saying she knew if I blocked her, I wouldn't be able to keep her blocked, so she should be the one to do it. I said fine. We didn't end up blocking each other on our phones due to if there was an emergency. I had no family in state. As I drove away, I felt sad but also felt as if a huge burden was lifted from me. For the next month it was an uphill battle. I would be depressed at night. I realized she had made me codependent on her. I had become accustomed to her nightly phone calls. I felt very alone. There were many nights on the floor of my room in tear-filled agony. But I threw myself into my work, my school and my friends. But then, about a month later, I got a call from her early in the morning. I answered thinking it was an emergency. It wasn't. It seemed as if she had butt-dialed me, but that didn't make sense. We hadn't spoken in a month. What were the chances of her accidentally calling me? I could hear a conversation but only bits and pieces. I could hear her voice but also a voice I didn't recognize the other voice. It was definitely a guy. I heard something about snow and I swear I heard my name mentioned, but then the call ended. I know I shouldn't have, but I reached out to a few friends and heard she had started dating someone. I then reached out to her, I know I shouldn't have, and asked if she was alright. It took a few days for her to respond. She then said she had butt-dialed me but she had wanted to speak to me. She said she really missed my friendship and for a few minutes we spoke as if nothing had changed. She told me she had started seeing someone. I told her I had heard and she asked how and I told her from friends. By then I had seen a picture of the guy. She began talking about him and about his flaws. I just listened but I began to feel weird about it. She then spoke about his hair being weird and I responded yeah it is a bit, but I guess she had been speaking about his hair years ago and then began to question how I knew what his hair looked like back then. I responded sorry, thought she was talking about now. She then told me that she had recently been getting a lot of random friend requests on FB and she asked if they were me. They weren't. We ended the conversation shortly after. And I began to have a weird feeling about it. I was sort of happy for her, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't want to continue talking to her. I messaged her the next day and told her, well, I like talking to you like we used to, I think we should continue to not speak. She agreed. I then proceeded to block her number. A week later, while on campus, I noticed I had a voicemail even though my phone hadn't rang. It was from her asking if I was home. She came to drop some things off. I personally felt like there wasn't anything worth her returning, and it pissed me off that she had come and dropped the stuff off at my front door since no one was home. I became really annoyed. I had told her no contact anymore. I then decided to write her an email. I told her basically that I had loved her with all my heart but that she had mistreated me in a lot of ways, lied to me, etc. I told her to thank her parents for being kind to me. We had a rather good relationship and they actively told me how amazing of a BF I was. I then proceeded to tell her I want no contact of any kind. That she was now blocked from my phone. I said though we live about an hour away now, it would be possible to run into each other due to friends living close to me and such. I told her the way you treat me is how I will treat you if we see each other. If you treat me like a friend, I'll treat you like a friend. If you treat me like an enemy, I'll treat you like an enemy. If you treat me like I don't exist, I'll treat you like you don't exist. I sent the email and didn't expect to ever hear back from her. Boy, was I wrong. A few days later, I received a reply from her dad. Her dad, mind you, is an ex-Marine and a lawyer. In his email he stated that I should leave his daughter alone. He accused me of stalking her, not sure how I was, seeing as I was an hour away and busy with school, work and friends. He accused me of creating fake FB accounts and cyberstalking her. Once again, I didn't create any to do that, though I had looked at her account from a friend's account a few times, but that was it. I mean, who hasn't? But then he used that line about treating her the way she treats me, and he highlighted that part and said I consider this a threat. He proceeded to tell me to leave her alone, otherwise he would get a restraining order. I was blown away. Her dad and I had always been on good terms. I just couldn't believe what I was reading. I spoke to a few people and, having studied a bit of law in university, responded to him. I told him, look, I want nothing to do with your daughter. She was the one who reinitiated contact. In fact, she came to my house, without my knowledge, a week ago. If I'm a stalker, why would she risk coming to my house? I told him that we both know what he had said were unsubstantiated and no judge would ever give them a restraining order. I told him never contact me again and I'll do the same to him and his daughter. It was then that I wondered what the fuck was going on. What stories was she telling people about me? What sob tale is she spinning and why? I told some of my friends about what happened and they were blown away too. They just told me that I had dodged a nuke and I should be happy. I thought the story would end there, but like I said, this is a cheating story, a long one but a cheating story nonetheless. So we had broken up in January. Just after the first week of April, a friend of mine messaged me while I was working and told me that my ex had just gotten engaged. I was floored. It had only been 3 months. For the girl that had constantly said how hard relationship had been for her because of her cheating, abusive ex-fiancé, it just didn't make sense. But what was interesting, my friend told me, was a comment that someone had put on her announcement. This person was congratulating her on her engagement and so happy she could help them get together back in November. The same November when we were still going out. Yes, weren't exclusive at that point, but to me, since I had given her several outs and she lied about there being someone else, I consider that cheating. I was livid. And then everything came into place. That's why she became distant at Christmas. That's who she wanted to watch that movie with. That hurt, but I got on with my life. I was still having depression issues. Trust issues. I spoke about it to some people. Friends, church people. But the more I spoke about it, the more I learned about her. People who had knew her and didn't know we had dated came out and said, yeah, that girl had issues. They told me things they probably shouldn't have told me, but whatever. I found out all the nasty things she said about other people and I began to realize that she never really cared about me. She simply wanted someone to care for her and then dump once someone better came along. I realized that the reason I fell in love with her was not because of who she was, but what she pretended to be. She had heard about me, knew I was a nice guy and decided I was empathic enough to trick. She simply reflected myself back at me and I thought I was dating someone similar to me, but really I had been dating a narcissist. But this helped me understand a lot about myself. That I care too much. Love too deeply. And need to be careful who I give my love to. Lesson learned. So half a year passed. I hadn't run into her, but I had heard she had moved back to my city with her husband, so much for me being a stalker. Some of my friends had a few run-in with her and one embarrassed her by making a sexual innuendo about something she had done. Love you, Danny boy, brothers for life. I got invited to a friend's wedding. I couldn't make it to the actual ceremony, but I made it to the reception. I was just finishing up making a small speech making fun of my friend. Dude had a laugh that was so annoying and loud, you wouldn't believe. I was ending my remarks and was about to sit down when a mutual friend started walking into the room. And who was right behind her? My ex and her husband. I saw her and was a bit surprised. Just as she was about to walk into the room, our eyes met. And in the moment, instead of walking into the room, she pushed her husband back into the hallway out of sight and quickly followed. I was taken back and stepped out to the other side of the building to collect my thoughts and feelings. I was overall fine, but the shock of seeing her was interesting. After a few minutes I came back into the room and noticed my ex and her husband had never entered the room. I then asked my friend if he invited her and he said yes. I told him a heads up would have been nice, but he said that he didn't even think about it. He wasn't that close of a friend, more of a mutual friend of one of my best friends. Anyway, minutes passed and the new couple was about to have their first dance, so we all moved some chairs out of the way. I happened to be on a side of a door putting chairs away when my ex came through that exact door, saw I was right next to her and ran to the other side of the room with her husband in tow. We avoided each other the rest of the reception except for a couple of glances. But in that moment, I felt whole again. All those months after the breakup I felt broken and like a piece of myself was missing, but in this moment, seeing how she reacted, how ashamed she seemed to be, I felt my power coming back. I felt truly happy for the first time. Even though she was married and I was not, I had won the breakup. She was ashamed to even look at me. I had no such problems. I had an overall clear conscience. And now here I am, over 4 years after the breakup, writing this. I'm still single, but overall I'm happy. And Maddie, if you end up reading this, fuck you. I'm the one who ended up finishing university and you're just a housewife. After all that talk about changing the world and shit. All you're ever going to change are dirty diapers and be a fucking liar and a cheat.